Good morning, Liberty lovers. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. We made it to Friday. That's awesome. If you're tuning in live, then I especially thank you for giving me your time so early. Wars are raging around us. We're all steadfastly consuming media surrounding the Israel Palestine conflict. And you might remember that there's a war in Ukraine too. But if not, we get it. That's passe. The culture war is, as always, a lit dumpster careening down the sidewalk of gentrified neighborhoods. Well, Tub Roarbaugh joins me today to give some proper perspective, some counsel on just where we place our attention. So let's go ahead, bring him in. Tub, good morning. How are you?
That's your intro, like a Mr. Rogers type intro right there. Is that what that is?
Yes. I am now the 2023 version of Mr. Rogers.
How things have changed through the years.
I know. I thought this is not a joke. I actually thought about um doing some sort of like song intro.
Right.
And then I remembered my voice and I thought, you know what? Let's not sully his memory that bad.
Yeah. I think you're doing just enough damage right where you are.
Right.
There's
Right.
any further.
Let's keep it let's maybe he only needs to roll over in his grave once.
And I think he's probably already done that. So we're good.
Yeah.
You can leave it
Yeah,
alone.
we're good.
Now,
He's like, all right,
here's
that's enough. Whatever, I'm done. He's washed his hands. But yeah, that's kind of what I was going for. You're actually the second person that has noted that. So I'm like, wow, that's really cool.
So it's working, or you're over the second person says, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you mocking Mr. Rogers?" Or what do you say?
They just noted that it had a Mr. Rogers feel to it.
It does. Was that your intent?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
yeah. So here's a fun story. I initially had considered doing. I was talking to a friend of mine who has one of those drones, and I was like, "Hey, man, maybe we could get like a neighborhood photo and kind of how that intro was, where it's like zooms in and all that." And then we never got to it, but then I decided that was probably a bad idea anyway because it would make it a little bit easier for people to find out where I live.
And that's not what you
Because I'm
want.
like literally showing them all the houses.
Everybody around you.
Right. So, and I figured my neighbors might not like that because, like, what happens if I become, very, very popular, but also means I would be very,
Negative
very
way.
unpopular. And
Yes.
so my
Yeah.
neighbors might not like the unpopularity that comes to the neighborhood for it. So,
No, I will.
I
I
figured,
will say this. I noticed that the house next door to you is for sale.
yeah,
So, are
I
they
grew
getting?
in the neighborhood.
Did they see where this is going? Is that what that is? They're seeing. Hey, look, wait a minute. This is not getting better.
It was
And
so weird. Like I was talking to my neighbor one day and I was like, yeah, I was like, I got this podcast. And then like the next day their house is up for
out.
sale. Like, wow, okay. I don't know how that happened, but
Oh, you know
interesting
exactly
coincidence.
how that happened.
Interesting coincidence, right? So
Yeah.
let's say some good mornings here. Where are we? There we are. All right, Keith. Good morning to you, good sir. And I'm sure that there's plenty of other people, probably hundreds, thousands, that are tuning in just are like, you know what? I can't be bothered to say good morning. Good morning to you, little man, my little buddy here. He just woke up. You can't see him. You can see his head right here.
I
Just a
see his
wee
head
bit.
right there. Yeah.
Yeah. He just woke up. So we're gonna let him get his chocolate milk or whatever it is, to kind of get going for the day. So
I
Tub,
might end up with one roaming in here. Our grandson stayed with us last night,
oh, fun,
so
nice.
he'll be running around here probably in a minute also.
All right, fair enough. So it's basically the absolute essence of a Liberty Dad show with kids running around because like
Pretty
you
much.
can't really have a show with the word dad in it. It
Dad.
doesn't have a kid pop in.
Yeah,
on
but
the camera.
you gotta understand that we need the Liberty Granddad version
Right.
of this because I'm too old to be having kids that age.
I understand your oldness.
So that's all right. You know what? We had a good run. We lasted exactly what 3.5 minutes or so.
All right. Right. Okay. So here's what's going on, folks. What did I bring Tub on? Like, I like Tub. I
Uh,
said like a lot. I got to work on that. Why did I bring Tub on? What I wanted to do is bring Tub on to talk about the culture war and give a little bit of, you might call it like a side hustle for pastoral advice or counsel.
a side.
Um,
Am I getting paid for this?
I
Because
wish.
when I hear side hustle, I think there's money involved.
It's let's call it a spiritual hustle.
There we go. Fair enough. All right.
Side spiritual hustle. While back, you might remember that I talked about the culture war, and I said libertarians absolutely should engage in it. And I said that they should engage in it in one of several ways. Number one, they should ignore some things. Some things we can just ignore them. Other things, maybe we talk about and we get our voice out there and we have this rational conversation. And the point at that, it's for one of two purposes. We either advocate that maybe government does have a role in something, or in most cases, in my opinion, we advocate that the government doesn't need to be involved. And then we make sure to clearly tell people how government doesn't need to be involved in this and why, and the ramifications, and just how society could resolve it on their own. And then for whatever reason, the third point is escaping me.
Well, we also address about whether libertarians need to be involved in it. Well,
Right.
we address like kind of the libertarian aspect that hey, that's good for them, but it's not
Yes.
something we have bigger things to deal with.
Right. So
Okay.
so we're gonna be coming at it from more of a libertarian perspective. Now, it may deviate, the conversation could always deviate a little bit and talk about it and say like, "Hey, if you're not a libertarian," but we'll probably be sticking mostly to a libertarian perspective because what we want to do is help kind of shape, help guide, and give some guidance, if you will, on the culture war items that we give our attention to. And so, and it's interesting because some of the culture, like most of the culture war, probably like if you're not talking about like celebrity marriages, which I'm probably never going to bring up because to me, in my opinion, that's always a no. We don't like, yeah,
Yeah.
you can have a quick comment on Twitter, but I wouldn't go on and on and on about it, right? Like that would be absurd.
Hold on. People will have ongoing conversations on Twitter, even in your circles, about like Hollywood couples and stuff like that.
Not really. So, I mean,
Okay.
like you might remember the weird videos from Britney Spears that came out where she's like doing that weird dance and like one of them she's got like two knives and she's just doing some weird dance and her makeup looks all like
Watch this. You ready? You
disheveled
ready?
on her face and like it's
I got.
really really weird.
I have no idea.
And people, there was minor I mean, it's not like it was clogging up my feed or anything, but I did see
Okay.
people commenting on it. Those kind of things, I just don't think that that really needs a whole lot of attention from us. Now I get it. There might be some libertarians like that's what you do. You talk about culture, and that's fine. But I'm talking about it just in general speaking,
Okay.
because as libertarians, we are out to fight the government, right? And beat them back, make it much, much smaller. And for the anarchist out there, make it not exist at all.
Right.
So that's the angle that we're coming at from these topics. And so what's going to happen is every week I'm going to pick about 4 topics. Um, excuse me. We're gonna pick about 4 topics and I'm put them up on the screen. And like maybe there'll be a picture or maybe there'll be a video. This week I've got some videos. I'll
Okay.
try to keep them very, very short. So we're not gonna be watching like a 16-minute video because then we basically just got into
Did
it.
the whole show of nothing.
Right.
Just
Right.
these various
So,
clips.
and then what Tub is gonna do, he's gonna give the final word and he's gonna say yay or nay, and then maybe some sort of reason why. Like, here's why I don't think this is worth your attention. Right.
Okay.
And then the idea as we do this show weekly, right, Tub? We're doing it weekly?
I think that's the plan. Yeah.
Okay, that's the plan. I'm gonna make
That's
sure
the
that
plan.
he was on board before I started saying, yeah,
You should have asked that. See, you should have asked that before we were on here, though.
right,
See,
right,
like we had this rule with the boys growing up that they weren't allowed to ask if their friends could spend the night if their friend was standing there. They'd like
right,
kind of pull us aside. And what you just did was exactly what you're not supposed to do. You're
right,
not supposed to ask while we're all out there in front of everybody.
right.
But now
So
I'm the jerk if I say no, no deal. That was never the plan.
did did you just put a thumb bubble up on the screen?
Not that I know of. I didn't do anything.
There was a thumb bubble that just came up on the screen on your side. That was weird. And I wasn't touching anything.
Are people not allowed to watch?
No, I don't know where it came from. I've never seen that before. It was right next to you, just like a round bubble with the thumb in it.
Somebody likes just this.
And
It's not even about
I
your
don't even
content,
know
but
how
about what
that
we're saying.
happened.
Just this. They just like this.
I wonder if that's from Twitter, because I think that might be from Twitter. Right? Okay. Anyway, so
Okay.
Tubb is going to give us the final word on that and kind of say like, "Hey, this is why." And then ideally, over time, as people watch, they'll get a sense, and then eventually, we'll be out of a job because they'll have figured it out. That will have led the horse to the water. And they
And
will
they started doing it on
they
their own.
will lap it up with their horse tongue.
Now, here's the thing I think we need to understand. I don't know what you've chosen.
He
Like
doesn't.
this is all new to me as you put it up here now, and there might be something that you bring up. I go, oh, I don't know about that, but that sounds intriguing,
Right.
and you might have to explain it out to me a little bit, and we'll kind of go through it.
Right. So
Okay.
let's get into it. Let's start. I've got 3 videos, and then we'll just chat on the 4th item. So,
Okay.
so the first, let's bring it up on the screen here. So we are going to there, and let's see here. Give me a second to edit. And can we do it this
Oh
way?
no,
Nope, not that way. Let's go back to this way. Okay, that's gonna work. We got both
we're
of
off
us.
to a bad start.
We're off to a bad start. So some people might recognize this person as AOC. Let's hear what she has to say. Congresswoman AOC.
United States, our responsibility is to the stability and the security of the region. That means being able to support, not support, yes, Israel in its defensive capacities, right? In its ability, in that context. But it also means that the United States has a responsibility to ensure accountability to human rights, to prevent the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and to ensure that horrors do not happen in the names of victims who do not want their tragedy used to justify further violence and injustice.
Right.
Beautifully said.
I don't know who that was in the background. There's some weird additional audio
Beautifully
in that
said.
clip. And then, well, there was that thing that people are like, was that a fart in there? It was like,
Oh,
you know,
I don't know. Okay.
So what does the U.S. have some sort of responsibility? Because this is kind of a cultural issue. It's like this like we have this responsibility to ensure that genocides don't happen. Right. And she's talking about it in a particular conflict, but there have been many other conflicts in the past. And people are like, hey, the U.S. needs to get involved. So culturally, do we have that kind of responsibility?
Okay, so she starts in that with saying that she needs to worry about the stability of the region.
Right.
And so I see that and I go, oh, she's a U.S. Congresswoman saying we need to worry about the stability of the region. And then she goes on to say, I'm like, whoa, hang on. Why don't we worry about the stability of our region?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we worry about what we have going on here?
What is our region? When you say that, what does that mean?
Okay, so for her region would be New York. Stay focused up there. And then we have ours. So I always look at it, it's going to sound harsh. We're in America first. Like we should be an America first nation. You know, we do like everybody else does. We worry about our own benefits first. Okay. And then we worry about what's going on over there. The problem is a number of years ago, we've taken on the role of police of the world.
Right.
And it doesn't always work out very well because what we tend to do is we tend to get over involved. And once we get over involved, we go to these foreign countries and we think that they want to be like us. And they don't want to be like us. They have their own customs and traditions and religious beliefs in their areas. They don't have a desire to be a little America. Unfortunately, we don't do that very well. When we go to help, I think we overhelp, if you will.
Right.
And we put too much onto them. So is our question, do we continue with this conversation or are you going to show me 3 other ones?
So, well, we can.
Or am I gonna comment on each of them?
Yeah. So ultimately, do you believe that this should consume our time talking about? And in what context?
In the sense that we agree with her, or in the sense that we disagree with her?
That would it be appropriate for libertarians to necessarily retweet that and talk about it from the stance of like, hey, being the world police,
I would
cultural
say,
idea?
I would say yes. I think because that lends into an opportunity to explain who we are.
Okay.
Like that's a pretty good lead about, hey, we are worried about, let's worry about ourselves. But let's worry about what we have going on in our issues and not just implementing our thoughts across the world. So I
Right.
think that's one that if we stayed on task, now you understand libertarians have some difficulty staying on topic and on task.
Right.
So if they stayed in that area, they said, hey, listen, here's why we're discussing this. Because it'll turn into a tangent about AOC herself and all these other things and don't care about all of that. If you stay with the topic of what she's saying, I believe there's some things that we can get our viewpoint across and a topic that's relative to what's going on in the world right now.
Okay. Awesome. So folks, if you're watching and you want to talk now, this clip was about just under a week old, so it's not quite this
Okay.
week exactly. It was like the 8th or something like that, or maybe a little bit sooner, the 7th or 6th or something like that. So it was like maybe last Friday or something that I think it came out, but it's relatively recent. So if this is something that you want to talk about, and it's not like we're trying to tell you what you should or should not talk about
You
per
will talk
se,
about this.
but
You will.
but what we're doing is we're laying it out and saying, in our opinion, what should take our focus and in what context should it take the focus. So here Tub has very clearly said, like, yeah, this should take our some of our focus, and we should stay on task and talk about the context of whether or not the US should be the world police. And of course, in our opinion, and probably most libertarians' opinions, we should not be the world police. And part of it is more pragmatically speaking, is because it tends not to work out so well.
It doesn't.
I would argue, and we don't have to go into it very long, but I would argue that part of the reason, just since we're on the topic, that it doesn't turn out so well is because I see that you have citizens and you have government, and the government is basically doing their thing, and they have their own interests. Their interests are not always, in fact,
Of the people.
usually not aligned with the citizens. That's why they
And,
tend to lie so much.
and the thing is, I think that's the one thing our government has in common with many governments around the world.
Right,
It's not
right.
about the people. It's about what the government sees that they want.
Yep. So, so that's where we are. In the future, maybe I'll have like a cool little, like check mark or thumbs up or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that.
Well, so that's not worthy of week one. You got to wait and see.
I didn't quite work out how to accomplish that just yet, and I was trying to go through like audio sounds, and I kept finding like not really cool ones, and so I was like, all right, this is.
Well, just have your producer take care of it.
I will. In fact, hey, yeah, make sure you get on that. Okay.
Get up.
All right, awesome. Thanks. Yeah.
Is there
So.
a mirror? Is there a mirror right over there that you would look at?
So, all right, let's move on to this next one. Also a cultural issue. And so this is a nice little video.
I don't like the way you
Tubbs gonna
started.
get me. It's a nice little video from Libs of TikTok.
Oh, no.
All right. But it is something that is it is going around. So let's talk about it.
Happy National Coming Out Day from your local or probably not so local queer teacher. I have a sticker on my mug that says support queer kids, which of course you can't read because I didn't put the flip filter on it. And one of my kids commented today on how much they appreciated that. And all of my rainbow on today. And I was like, well, it's National Coming Out Day. Like I had to be covered in rainbows. And they're like, oh my gosh. So we talked about coming out and they asked if they could make me cookies. It was very cute. So I love my 10th graders. And to anyone watching this, worried about or thinking about coming out, no matter where you are in your coming out journey, you are valid and loved, and you will always have a place here.
All right. Oops. Get back to Tub there. There we go. Bring Tub back in.
Okay.
So there are two things in this particular video, actually.
Okay.
So there's the National Coming Out Day,
Okay.
which I think we can pretty much get that one out of the way really quickly. I don't think that really requires a whole lot of conversation from libertarians.
Nope.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So don't need it. Second thing is the queer teacher. Now that one's kind of a big deal in the sense that people talk about it a lot. I mean, it's literally gotten parents to go and run for school board, right? Like this issue of queer teachers, and I don't think that it's necessarily the queer like the fact that they are queer. I think it's videos that are like this, and there are some that are even worse, where the teachers are like, they kind of sound sinister in a way. They're like, ha, 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 I'm teaching your little kids, and so they kind of come out kind of creepy. Um, should libertarians, do you think this worth our focus to talk about this, what appears to be a lot of queer teachers talking about it's weird to say queer, because when I was growing up, that was not, that was an insult.
Right.
You weren't allowed to say that. Like, so weird. But anyway, is that something that should take our focus?
So I there's two things about this. One is I say no,
Okay.
because the more attention you give them, the more attention they take, and the more that they make, and then the more that they do. Now, here's the question I have about this, and maybe this is just why I get set off, and to me, I'm like, I don't even want to deal with it. So
Mhm.
here's what. So I remember growing up, I didn't know even our teachers' first names.
Right.
Like in our world growing up in school, and I went to government schools, and in that, I didn't even know if they had a life outside of school. And in
Right.
fact, your whole day would be wrecked if you went to the store and saw your teacher there. Like, it was
Right.
just like they were not in our lives like this.
Right.
And so for me, I look at it and go, when did they become the ones who encourage our kids' sexuality?
Right.
So for me, I just kind of, the only way I would ever take this is I'm a big advocate of like homeschooling and private schools and stuff along those lines. And
Right.
this right here just leads things into the direction of this is why we don't do it. So I
Gotcha.
would say on the overall, all right, for lack of a better term, what they put out there, the gay agenda, if you will.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't think libertarians need to speak on that because we've been pretty vocal about where we stand on it.
Right.
Like, don't care, go about your business, leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that as far as that goes, we've kind of been pretty clear. And the problem is, I think we keep making a stand on things that we've already proven ourselves that we have a stand on, and
Right.
we get sidetracked. We start talking about things that we don't have to. We can just go back, look, just say, hey, look at our history. Like, I'm not
Right.
going to go through this again with you. Like, how many times have you done that, even with your own kids, with whoever, people in your life? You
Right.
go, I'm not going through this again. I've already said it, I've already established it. You know where I am with this. I'm
Right.
not going through it again. And I think
Yeah.
this could be one of those topics.
Okay. Is there any reason to be concerned about um so the big concern that parents have is that teachers are inviting and maybe kind of in some way subtly pushing their kids in a particular direction. So
Okay, now,
even
what,
on
what,
that front,
what, you know how I answer this one? I've had this question different times.
right?
You know what I tell people? Here's an idea. Why don't you get involved in your kids? And in that, instead of just shipping them off to the government, what you've done, you've become very content with sending your kids to the government to raise them.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, once that starts happening, you get what you get. So my thinking is this didn't, I don't think that this just happened all of a sudden. There's a slow lead up to these type of things. Okay.
Okay.
And so I look at it and go, okay, listen, if you're unhappy with it as a parent or whatever, like you don't want them steering your kids in a certain direction, all right, so you can get involved, like you said, get a school board, stuff along those lines, teach, do whatever it is you need to do. Or, and hear me out, get them out of the government school system, sacrifice a little bit. And what I mean by that is, you know what? So like my kids didn't go to the government school system. They went to private school. And so we had to take on the idea that I know I'm going to put X amount of dollars every month towards their
Right.
education because I didn't want them in that environment.
Right.
So guess what we have to do? Maybe as parents, we have to sacrifice a little bit.
Right.
And instead of just saying, well, the easiest thing is to send them to there and then just complain that we're sending them to there.
Right.
That's absurd. Do something about it. So I look at it and go, I think we ought to just let it ride. And we already have a certain, as libertarians, we have a certain understanding about government school system anyway. Once again, I don't think we need to get into it. We've already proved our point about where we
Mhm.
stand with the school system.
So is the better conversation then to maybe, rather than focus on, okay, all these teachers that we're seeing on like libs of TikTok and other places like that, is the better conversation then to say, if we're going to have a conversation and talk culturally and say, like, look, because again, you don't need government. You don't need government to teach your kids. And statistically, they're not doing a good job
Not doing
anyway.
better. Yeah.
So, maybe when they get to the higher level of math and things like that, then maybe you might need a little assistance and stuff. But otherwise, at least starting out in the, the elementary age, um, generally speaking, you should be able to handle this. And here are some resources and here are some things that you can do to get your kid out of there. Because today it's, this queer, the queer thing that's going on, where it feels like maybe the teachers are trying to, convert your kids, if in a sense, but eventually that's going to go away and it'll be something else.
There's
And
something
it'll
else.
be something else. And it was something else 10 years ago, right? Like in 15 years ago and 20 years ago. And so maybe conversation for libertarians is to really just focus on getting the kids out
Uh-huh.
and being, I'm trying to think of how do I want to say this so I don't insult parents, but being the most responsible parent that you can be, right?
Now,
By being the most engaged parent that you can be, to the point of pulling them out.
here's some conversation I've been having about this topic alone, because it's turning into a real problem. And let's be honest, there are a number of people, obviously, in my circle who are Christians. Okay.
Mhm.
And so they're unhappy with the school system. So now here's the thing. There's a term that I refer to as like a community school. And I'm sure there's probably a real term for that somewhere, but I use community school. And here's what I say. I says, imagine if a group of you
Mhm.
decided you were going to put your kids together for school. Okay. And in that, your group hired a teacher. And your group is responsible for paying for that teacher. Now, here's the thing. At that point, you control the curriculum. You control what's getting done. And if it's not happening, guess what? Guess what those 4 or 5 parents had the luxury to do? Fire that teacher and then bring in the next one. And there would be a range of ages inside of that group. Think like the old one-room schoolhouse mentality.
Right.
And so if you brought in a teacher and you said, hey, listen, I'm willing to pay this teacher X amount of dollars, between us 6 or 7 families, we can handle her salary. We don't have to worry about that. And now we have a hands-on approach, even for the parents who say, hey, teaching's not my thing. But,
Right.
I can spare an extra, $100 a week maybe to help make that happen. And like I said, if you put a few of those together, now you've paid the salary of a decent teacher who says, hey, I'm down for this idea.
Right.
And I think everybody kind of works out. And especially if that teacher has one of their kids involved in that group also,
Right.
then it works out even better.
Right.
So I think that these
They got
are the
their
things
genes
that
in
we
the game.
right.
I just
And
made
so
that up.
I look at this and I go, it starts getting parents to start thinking of ways, how do I get my kid out of the government school system? And I
Right.
think that's the direction we should be going in. Listen, let's not attack, those teacher stuff, because it's going nowhere. Attacking
Right.
the teachers and the things that they're saying, it's not changing anything.
Right.
Okay, fine. What can we do? Well, the best thing you can do is you start pulling your money away.
Yeah.
You start saying, hey, I'm not going to give into this anymore. And what's happening there?
I have no idea what's going on.
What was that?
I don't know. We are being,
All right.
it is the day of jihad, and we are being
And we are being
virtually
jihaded.
attacked.
There. So here's
I
the thing,
have
like,
no
you
idea
have
what
a
that
green
is.
screen, so I would not be surprised that you can pull stuff. That's just
And-
my house, though.
And it came, it came on yours. It didn't come on mine. I
Yeah,
have
I'm
no
just
idea.
sitting in my office. All right. Anyway, go ahead. What's your next topic?
So let me add one more thing
Okay.
to what you're saying, because I think this kind of works with what you just said on the last topic. You said, hey, stay focused on your area of responsibility, right? And when it comes to kids, the area of responsibility for me, the first
yours.
and foremost, is my son.
Yep.
Period. Not somebody else's kid. And it may sound, like I gotta work with my family first, and then if there's time, I can work with somebody else's family.
Mhm.
And the other thing I wanted to add to what you were saying, this particular video I think is interesting because she seems like a nice young lady, right? Like there are some videos where they do seem a bit sinister and kind of creepy, and that's a little different. But I think we run the risk, if we're focusing on like queer teachers and oh my god, there's they're transing our kids and all this stuff. I think one of the things that we run into is that we run roughshod over actual nice people who may just be youthful and maybe what you might call misguided, right? And I think that we want to be careful not to do that, because you effectively create enemies, right? Where maybe you didn't have one before. So I just kind of adding to what you're saying, I think there
Mhm.
are some nice people out there, even if we disagree with them. And we just have to be mindful in this culture war, because you end up making enemies.
Like,
So,
I just don't know what that has to do with what you send them to school for. I think that's my only issue.
Right.
Is that what does that have to do? What? Now here's the thing: is if there's, I don't know if they still have like a health class. We used to have a health class.
Yes.
And I think there would be a level, there would be like a small section to talk about sexuality or whatever, very, very small, like portion of 1 week's class, type of mentality. And so I don't understand why that's become front and foremost.
Right.
And I think that's the issue. Like we would have never had any of that type of stuff pushed onto us.
No, it's funny. I'll give you a quick story, then we'll move on to the next item here. Well, I used to go to a Catholic school for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I believe it was in 7th grade, we were in health class. Maybe it might have been 6th grade. It's probably 6th grade, actually. But 6th grade, I'm in health class and we're watching one of those little videos about sex ed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was the Catholic school where all the teachers were nuns, but they didn't wear the nun outfit for whatever reason. I think they were nuns, but they were at least members of the church and,
Angry church members, yeah.
Yeah. So these weren't just random teachers. They were like specifically Catholic, and it was a Catholic oriented school. And so we're in health class, and the word masturbation came up, and I didn't have any clue. So I was like, what's masturbation? And you could see the teacher was like trying to figure out how to have this, because they're all women teachers. So she's trying to, now I'm like this adolescent boy asking this question, and she's like, so my friend leans over and he's like, he's jacking off. And the teacher looks at me and says, you understand now? And I said, yeah. And then she's like, good. And then we just went on.
And she was perfectly fine. Like, hey, whew.
It was probably the one time that you could get away with saying that. And she was happy because she didn't have to do the explaining.
But it was appropriate to that conversation at that time.
Right.
Okay.
So, all right, let's go to the next video here. Let's get this up on the screen. And click the right button. There we go. All right. One of our favorite people.
Is that Hillary?
It is. She is. Look how poised she is sitting there. Like, that's just a diplomatic position to be sitting in, right?
Are you about to show me a recent video? Is this recent?
Yeah, this is within the last week or so. This went around.
Why? Just why? Like, just go and enjoy. Listen, she should go be at the beach like Joe Biden is. Like, just go. Just go and enjoy retirement. Have your happy little life and be done.
Yeah, but look how stately she looks.
Show me the video.
So when you look at how to go forward for the country, as you say, is there any area of coalition building that could happen? There are pragmatic Republicans, as you say. Could there be a whole new way of trying to, get legislation going and cross-party governance going by Democrats and certain Republicans forming
arresting serious?
Well, you saw the number of Republicans who voted along with Democrats to keep the government open. So there's clearly a common sense, sane part of the Republican caucus in the House. But I think they are intimidated. They oftentimes, say and do things which they know better than to say or do. And it will require us defeating those most extreme measures and the people who promote them in order to try to get to some common ground where people can, again, work together. That's the way it used to be. I mean, we had very strong partisans in both parties in the past, and we had very bitter battles over all kinds of things, gun control and climate change and the economy and taxes. But there wasn't this little tail of extremism wagging the dog of the Republican Party as it is today. Mm-hmm. And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil actions and criminal actions. And when do they break with him? Because at some point,
here it comes.
Maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen.
And how do you do that? Because you said you have to defeat them by defeating their leader. Their leader is Donald Trump. Even you have said that you expect him to be the Republican nominee. How does this change at all?
Okay. Hang on, real quick. Real quick.
Well, I played a. Go ahead.
Okay, so she went from "we need to work together" in the same part of the conversation to go, we need to deprogram those people who don't think like us.
Right.
In the same conversation.
Well,
Work together too. We have to completely change them.
I think what she was getting at specifically is working with the Republicans that she likes and deprogramming the Republicans that she doesn't
Yeah,
like.
it's agree with me or you're wrong.
Right.
Now,
So
here's the,
this one went around with the whole deprogramming because people are like, oh, she wants to throw us in camps, blah, blah, blah. And, I get it. Like that's kind of where the rhetoric goes. But, and there is a cultural element there because the question of to what extent does government, do our leaders, if you will, want to control us? And, to what degree will they, to what end will they go to make that happen? Right. And so, like, is this something that we should be talking about? Because here's the thing. She's talking about deprogramming Republicans. I'm a libertarian. Like, she ain't talking about me.
but
I mean, she probably would be at some other point.
the thing is that if you don't defend the rights of others, now there'll be nobody to help you defend yours when they come after you.
So you're saying like, they went after the MAGA hats and I wasn't a MAGA hat. So
Yeah,
therefore,
so it was fine. And
Right.
then when they come after the gold hats, now
Right.
all of a sudden, hey, now we got a problem.
now there was no one
No.
left to defend me.
Here's the thing. So watch me agree with Hillary for a second. You ready?
Oh boy. I'm about to get canceled.
She did say inside of there about how we used to be able to come together in things. And yes, there were people that were angry or whatever,
Right.
and they try to find the best of. Okay. Like, what's the best thing that we can come together inside of this? And here's the thing. I look at that and I go, yes, it does seem like it's gotten worse. It does seem like it's the all this or all this and everything. If you notice now, most everything will always just fall down party lines.
Right.
Like, you can look at things and go, okay, what party is presenting this? And you can look at what branch of government is bringing it up, and you'll know how far it'll go based on right now how the division is of the parties. So she's right in that aspect, that now it truly is. There used to be more Joe Manchins. There used to be more Joe Liebermans. There used to be more of this. Okay, you know what? I don't have to agree with you on everything, but I can agree with you on this thing. So let's get moving on this thing. Kind of what we've really been pushing for libertarians. We don't have to agree on everything. Okay, like we don't have to agree with everything on people outside the party. But if we can find the things that we do agree on, let's get some work done.
Right.
And we as libertarians, we focus on everything that we don't have in common all the time. That's why we're always fighting.
Right.
So if we could learn that thinking that says, if we can look at them, if we can look at the two parties and go, that's horrible. Nothing's getting accomplished because they're too busy just fighting with each other, but we won't see that for ourselves. So there's a lesson to come out of that, but libertarians will miss it.
Gotcha. All right. So it's worth talking about. But we,
Okay. Did you want to focus on the camps aspect though, about what happens if they start deprogramming? Here's the thing.
Is that worth talking about and making a stink about?
I don't think so, because
Okay.
so many times that we take things off into this tangent. Oh, they're going to do this. You're like, yeah, but they don't. And we get all worked up. And instead of focusing on, because here's the thing is, that's Hillary. She talks about Donald Trump being insignificant now. Hillary's even far more insignificant.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, so why are we giving her airtime? Just move past it. Let her go on with her little things. Let it camp out over there. Once again, you give it attention, it gets attention. So I think this is one of those things we go, you know what? It's Hillary. Let her sit off on their corner with Christiane Amanpour, who has been relevant for almost 30 years.
Gotcha.
Just let them sit around, drink their coffee, talk about how they're going to deprogram people. Best of luck to you.
I do like some coffee, and I could be deprogrammed.
I don't even drink coffee, so.
I'm sorry.
I
mean, I'm drinking decaf, so I really don't have.
So what's the difference? You're drinking dirty water.
I mean, I guess kind of. I like it for the bold flavor in the morning, you know?
But what's just for the never mind. All right. So I look at that one and go, I think that we're good. I think we're good on that one.
Okay. Last item.
Okay.
I mean, I have 5 technically, but basically last item.
Okay.
Libertarian infighting. There was some infighting recently here this last week, and it involved some of our candidates. So the question, like, is that something that should take our attention? If so, under what context? And I'm speaking more generally because, to be honest with you, any given week, there's probably something that we could point out. So it doesn't really matter which particular issue.
So
it
are
is.
we not going to discuss this specific one? Is that what you're telling me?
We can. I can bring it up and talk about it. I mean, I don't have
Well,
anything.
no. Okay, so let's do it like this. We don't have to bring up the names, but we'll talk about the situation.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? So
yeah,
if they know, they know. If they don't, they'll just get some good information overall.
Right. So
Okay.
the situation was that you had one candidate who felt like members in the party who have significant sway were doing things behind their back. Now I'm couching my words. I'm trying to take a more neutral approach. So
Right.
if anybody's watching, I'm not saying that did or did not happen. All I'm just saying, I'm just kind of like trying to be reporter here.
Yeah, you're
in
playing
a
it
sense.
very safe. Go ahead.
I am, because what I don't want, I'm not trying to take a side. What I want to do is
Right.
figure out, like, are these kind of the things, we should be putting a lot of our attention to. And so it ended up going with some direct messages being put out without the other person's knowledge to say, hey, look, here's the evidence to show that what I'm saying is in fact true. Then people kind of got upset about that. And then there ended up being somebody else said, all right, well, I'm going to have a podcast. We're going to bring some of these guys on and we're going to hash this out. And like the first hour, I listened in, and the first like hour was just, F you, shut up. That's not true. Blah. Like it was just a lot of yelling. And toward the end, it did dial down.
Okay.
And there were some conversations, and there were comments from people to suggest like, hey, I really don't want this fighting. I really would prefer something else. I liked the good old days when we were friends, so there were some comments like that going on. And I think it's appropriate for people who are in conflict to work things out. So that I don't
Right.
isn't a problem. But there were like 100 people watching this podcast. So we watched like 2-hour podcast, right? Like that's 2 hours of time that we took away.
Right. There it is. So
200 hours of liberty was, there's 200 hours taken from liberty, if you think about it, in a sense.
So yeah,
And I was part of it. Don't get me wrong.
Else, yeah. So here's the thing. I didn't get into the podcast because I saw that it was getting ready to happen, and I just didn't care. See, you got to say that the drama aspect of it. I don't.
Somebody
care.
likes whatever you just said.
I guess so. So I don't care about the drama stuff. See, you got to understand. There's a certain level of. Here's what I tell people all the time. I was never a 14-year-old girl.
Okay.
And since I was never a 14-year-old girl, I don't like drama. I don't appreciate drama. I don't want to be involved in it. Like,
right.
Let's grow up. Let's be adults here. And sometimes people are going to say things we don't like. Okay, got it. Like, fine, move on. Listen, you got involved in politics. Let's just know that. And politics gets very ugly. But especially once you get involved as a candidate, you better get ready. And I've learned that. Like, I learned that firsthand. People will say things. People will say ugly things about you. It doesn't even have to have any truth inside of it. Now, with the specific situation that you're referring to, I saw the other things, the screenshots, the things along those lines, the conversations back and forth. And I had an inbox conversation with the one candidate. And I was like, dude, just don't. This doesn't make things better. Don't get involved in this. And he's just like, well, I get, and I get what he was saying. Like, I get it. But I go, you know what? This doesn't make anything better. Right. It doesn't make it better. And then, what was it? Yesterday, the day before yesterday, the other candidate said, he put a thing out there publicly. He's like, hey, listen, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, that's legit. Like, that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, we all do things sometimes impulsively. Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh, well, that was stupid. Right. At least this can, now let's be very clear. I'm not advocating for this other candidate. I'm just saying what he did was pretty solid, and that, you know what, you're right. I should not have, and he put it out there publicly. Right. And to me, that's when I go, all right, you know what? Take that apology. Thanks, dude. Let's move on. Because the more you keep poking back at that, that's attention going to other things that are not moving us forward. And what do we just complain about? The reason we can't get anywhere is we're so busy infighting. Well, guess what? So this one candidate has had some pretty solid messaging going on, good videos, good content, when he doesn't get caught up in this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you're undoing yourself. You're undoing yourself. Let that go. Let that junk go. You stay focused. And his comment to me was, we're about to starting tomorrow. Great. get off of the drama stuff because it doesn't move us in any positive direction. I think that this is something that would have been better for all of them. In fact, it would have been nice for some of the other candidates to chime in and say, hey, we're not playing this game, just drop it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to go to them at some point.
Right.
At some point, we got to stop this junk. We have far bigger things to be worrying about than this petty little name calling back and forth.
Right. It seems to me, some of the folks that I've been observing the Libertarian Party since 2017, so not a terribly long time, right? Like only about 6 years. And some of the people that I know have been in the party and the movement for maybe even over a decade, like 2 decades, right? So some of them have been around a long time, and some of them have been very active for a long time, and they've had to deal with this. And I think something that you said does make sense. It's politics. It's just a nasty, like we call politics a contact sport, right? And it very much is, even though we don't actually physically contact each other.
Right.
So I think what happens is, after a while, and tell me if you think this makes sense. I think after the longer that you're in it, the more susceptible you become to these things, or if you've done it well, the more resistant you become, right? Because if if you've been getting a barrage of names and insults and what you believe is backstabbing, and people turning on you and all these other, if these things have happened to you over time, it seems to me that you basically end up in one of two directions. You either become very resilient to it, or very sensitive to it. And I think that for most of us, we're probably going to end up becoming more sensitive to it, unless we specifically take measures not to. Now, does that sound, you were a candidate, I was never a candidate. Does that sound even remotely true?
Yes, and here's why. So when we had our convention down here a couple of years ago, and Larry Sharp was giving a little breakout session to candidates. And I remember him standing there, and he goes, listen, he goes, if you're going to be involved in politics, if you're going to be a candidate, he says, you got to be willing for one of your friends to come up and stab you in the back, take that knife out and hand it to you. He goes, because that's what's going to happen. And I was talking to him, and I said, hey, I said, listen, I says, I pastor a church. He goes, oh, then you'll be fine. and that's how he did it. And that's the reality. So I think that sometimes maybe there's a level of maturity that the party's lacking.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes as you grow up, you learn, hey, people are going to say things about me, but I don't care. And,
Right.
and in all reality, the church did prep me for some of that. It did
Right.
prep me, as much as I hate to say it. The church prepped me as a pastor. It prepped me. People, if they get mad, the easiest thing to do is attack the pastor. It's just the
Right.
easiest thing to do. And they leave the church because of this, that, or whatever. So I've dealt with it. And then when we got involved in running for office, it happens. Okay.
Right.
That didn't happen a whole lot for me in politics because I was never heavily on the radar. I had a big, huge,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? There was plenty of us in my race that it never got to that point. But
Right.
different times it comes up. So here's what will happen. Not the candidates so much, but the people would make comments.
Right.
Like social media, stuff along those. Oh, you're a loser. They get very social media tough.
Right.
And so they say these things. And then here's what I've learned. You don't have to respond to all of it.
Right.
There are certain things who cares? Like, you know what I've learned, especially online in particular, look at an account before you worry about whether you're going to argue with them.
Right.
Because sometimes they're just looking for any form of attention. They might not even disagree with you. They just
Right.
want to stir things up. And if they can get you off the game, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And I think that these libertarian candidates have to learn that. They have to learn, you're going to try to get me off my game, whatever, dude. Now, if it's something that has to be addressed, address it.
Right.
But don't let it drag on for a week. And certainly don't address it in the same name-calling way that they're bringing it out at you.
Right.
And when there's
Yeah,
a chance for resolution, take the resolution and be done.
Because and I'm sympathetic to this because, like, I'm not a candidate, but I put myself out there. when
Mhm.
I said I was going to start my podcast, a friend of mine, he was all like, "Oh man, are you sure you want to do that? People are going to come after you. They might even look up your house. That all these bad things." And he was like very negative Nancy, and I was like, "Dude, just calm down. It'll be all right, dude." I'm like, we'll be fine." But that is true. Like you put yourself out there, and you are basically saying, "Come at me," in a
Mhm.
sense, right?
Mhm.
And I've had mean things said about me. I've had people in the Libertarian Party accuse me and say, "Well, you never defend my pals, me and my pals." And I say, "Well, actually, not only have I defended you and your pals, like your pals, I've defended you." "No, you didn't." "Yes, I did. Here you go." And then they just go away. And then they don't, no apology, no, "Hey, thanks. Um, maybe we disagree a lot, but hey, I see where you were sticking up for me." Like I've had people basically do that. So I haven't had like the stab in the back thing necessarily, but I've had the false accusations where people say things about me, and I'll produce receipt after receipt after receipt. And it makes it more infuriating because many cases they don't care. They like
Right.
I've had people say things, I counter it, and I don't know how many times they've just left. Like the conversation's gone, right?
Mhm.
No retraction, nothing.
No,
And
just
I'm
moved
like,
on.
"For real?" And it's been trolls, people behind, anonymous people who I don't even know who are,
That's yep.
and it's been people that have name recognition. So it's been on both sides, and it is frustrating because you're like, "Seriously?"
But
And
I think
it's
that's a
just
matter of what I was saying is know who you're talking to.
right.
Yeah, like know who it is, because sometimes you're gonna have those people in your life. They're just the antagonists. That's just who they are.
Right,
And then you're gonna have people in your life who are the cheerleaders. But here's the thing: you need both of them. Both
right.
of them will help keep you grounded. But how's that saying go? Don't take criticism from somebody you wouldn't take advice from.
Right.
I'm like, okay, it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
And so I think that we have to just be willing to go. People are going to say things, but I don't have to get involved and I don't have to engage every time, because if I
Right.
do every time, it's going to get me off my messaging and where I need to be.
Right. Okay. Well, that's it, folks. We talked about AOC. We talked about Hillary. We talked about queer teachers and libertarian infighting. Very last, very quick question for Tub here. Today is the day of jihad. So apparently it was put out that Muslims around the world should take some sort of action. So are you concerned? Talking to
Me?
you, Tub. Yeah. Are you
Yeah, not
concerned?
at all. No,
Not
no,
at
I'm
all.
good. I'm good.
So, all
I,
right. You've got the police on speed dial, right?
the police, yes, I have the police on speed dial because
Right.
I'm going to wait for the ones who are reactionary when I can handle it myself.
Gotcha. All right. Fair enough. Folks, stay safe out there. So just make sure that you are you're ready, and you keep your head on a little bit of a swivel there. Just, and that's good advice any day, day of jihad or not. All right, Tub. Well, any final words from you before I close this show?
No, I guess we're going to try this again next week. Is that what
We
so
we are.
that's how we'll attack this. We'll attack 1 week at a time. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if people write to you and they go, dude, that was a really bad idea. Then maybe we don't do it next week.
Don't expect that, because
All
like
right.
I don't get a whole lot of feedback on, like that was a really great idea. And I hope that you do that more. Like it's never that clear. Usually it just is like, "Hey, good episode." But most of the time it's just, quietness. So
Okay. So you
hard to
want me to go?
gauge,
I'll
hard to
go with your.
gauge. So we're just going to do it. We're just going to keep going. And if all of a sudden I lose viewers, if Keith stops showing up in the morning, then I'll know, hey, you know what?
You're
Made a
like, oh,
big mistake
we
here.
lost
If,
that one. We're out.
if, if you're not getting weird explosions behind you, um, on the show anymore, then we'll
Then we know
know
it's
bad idea, right?
yeah.
No, nobody gave me an explosion. I don't know what's going on here, but I did not get one. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out, Tub, and then stick around for just a second. We'll chat behind
Okay.
backstage. All right, folks. Well, I thank you so much again for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed it. Be sure to catch me every morning, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, for an informed discussion on politics and culture. And then, of course, on Fridays, going to bring Tub on, and we're going to have this, weekly culture war wrap up where we just kind of make a brief discussion and say, hey, here's the direction. If you should be talking about it at all, here is the direction that you should take it. Then join me on Sunday evenings, 7 p.m., with my co host, Susan Hogarth. We are going to discuss LP happenings. I am in the process of trying to bring someone on that did something pretty interesting. I saw it out on social media. So hopefully I can get this person on for this Sunday. It's going to be very exciting, some local stuff happening. Be sure to do all the proper audience stuff. Where's my closing thing here? There it is. Go to my YouTube channel. If you're not a subscriber, and subscribe, youtube.libertydad.com, or go to rumble.libertydad.com. Subscribe there. Look forward. If you're on Rumble, look forward to start seeing things coming up very, very soon. I am steadily working on getting that channel set up. But in the meantime, primarily, you're going to want to keep an eye on YouTube. But otherwise, remember, if you are a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time.